All right, here we go. Today we have tech CEO Bryan Johnson, former CEO and founder of e-commerce payment company Braintree, which was acquired by PayPal in 2013 for $800 million, and current CEO of Kernel, which creates brain-machine interfaces. But these days, he's probably most known for the man who spends $2 million a year to slow down and reverse his age. Welcome to Flat TV.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so it's your first time here. I want to start in the very beginning. So you were raised in Springville, Utah.
That's right.
Okay, and you were actually raised Mormon.
That's right.
Okay, this was something that your family was involved with multi-generationally?
That's right.
Okay, so what was that like in that kind of environment?
It's like being in a fishbowl and you don't know you're in a fishbowl.
Okay, explain that.
I mean, the community was 30,000 people. Everyone I knew was Mormon. There wasn't a single person in my entire life that was not Mormon. And so you have a singular reality of what the world is. And there's an in-group and there's an out-group. And the people in the in-group you trust. The out-group, your only objective with the out-group is to convert them.
Aha.
It's very much it's a singular understanding of reality.
Right, I think for a lot of us, we learned about the Mormon community through shows like Big Love.
Mm-hmm.
Did you watch that at all?
I did.
Was that accurate, more or less, or not really?
I mean, I suppose there's bits and pieces that may resemble. It wasn't definitely representative of my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I think it's, unless you've experienced being in a singular community like that, it's very hard for someone to understand what it's like to have a singular reality. Mm-hmm. It's just I really didn't realize the multiple realities of existence until I was in my early 20s. It was like that kind of a shocking thing where I started being exposed to all kinds of ideas and cultures and history and perspectives that were never available to me.
Like in your family, did your father have multiple wives or no?
No.
Okay.
No.
Were there people in your community that did?
No, it's largely a splinter group of the Mormon religious community.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like the FLDS. They practice polygamy, but mainstream Mormonism discontinued that practice in the late 1800s.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So this is just sort of like shows like Big Love that kind of played up a little bit.
Yeah, and they kind of go back to the historical Mormon world. And so, no, it wasn't the case like that. I mean, there's aspects of the community and the gospel that, of course, are somewhat representative, but it's really a pretty big tangent off of mainstream Mormonism.
Gotcha. Okay, and at 19, because of your religion, you actually became a missionary.
That's right.
Okay, was this something that you were looking forward to doing? Or is this something you just had to do, so it's like, okay, I'm going to go do it?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
If you're a male in the Mormon church, it's expected of you that you go on a mission and spend the 2 years proselytizing the gospel.
Okay, so you went out to Ecuador.
That's right.
Okay, so you got this kid from Utah that suddenly is thrust in Ecuador trying to convert the people of that community to being a Mormon.
That's exactly right.
How much of an uphill battle is that?
Well, you need to first learn the language, so becoming entirely fluent in Spanish.
Oh.
And then 2, you're out and about in these given areas, and you work in the community, and you try to share the religion with others. There, it's predominantly Catholicism, which is the dominant religion. And so it's a comparison and contrast of what they understand, and then it's the Mormon representation, and then it's like, join this group because this group is the representative of God.
Okay. Did you manage to convert anybody when you were out there?
I did.
How many people would you say?
It's hard to say. I mean, there's the introduction to the church, and then there's people who stay with it. I just don't know the duration. It's hard to know really what effect I had, actually.
Okay. But a certain number of people actually went along with the idea and joined the church initially, not to say how long they actually stayed. Okay. Was there ever any kind of pushback or people that got a little upset over, who are already, established in their Catholicism and kind of felt a certain type of way of someone trying to convert them?
I mean, there's like a few groups of people. Some are just have no interest, like, I'm Catholic, I'm good, carry on. Yeah. Some people are interested in the Word of God, which is this generic thing of anyone talking about God is a good thing. There are others who kind of poke around and want to look at the various issues. Then there's other people in other religions that are very strongly, they're devoted to the religion and they want to get into a back and forth. And then there's other religions, which is just tribal warfare, where it's like, I'm going to prove you with the Bible you're wrong and I'm right.
Yeah.
So like a whole host. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty aggressive environment in the ideological world where you're trying to engage people and talk about beliefs about God. It's it's energetic from all different sides.
Did it ever get, I don't know, dangerous? Because you're in a totally foreign country,
Yeah.
You're not a citizen there. It's not your native language. And, when it comes to religion, I mean, people are willing to kill and die for it. I mean, and the extreme levels.
We had a few questionable situations where people did get pretty aggressive.
Like how aggressive?
One guy hit me.
One guy hit you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you okay at the end of the day?
Yeah, I was fine. I walked away, but it was, it's shocking. It's a typical human response. Humans hold opinions very strongly, and violence is not too far away at any given moment.
Okay, so you do 2 years in Ecuador, and then you come back, and then you go to Brigham Young University?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I guess at age 21, that's when you came up with your overall plan. You wanted to start a successful business, become a billionaire by 30, and then use the money to help others.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know what kind of business it was going to be back then?
No.
You just wanted to be a billionaire?
Well, it wasn't even that. It was just that I had been in Ecuador for 2 years. And yes, I was a missionary, but also I lived among extreme poverty for 2 years. Dirt floors, mud huts, people who were trying to they didn't know where lunch was coming from or where dinner was coming from. It was very much a fight for daily survival. And when I came back to the United States and we live in such opulence here, it was such a dramatic juxtaposition of realities. I thought, how can this be? And I just felt compelled that I wanted to spend my life trying to do meaningful things for humanity. That this disparity existed, and I had been in this little bubble my entire life, unaware of all this going on. So I just felt compelled to try to do something meaningful with my life.
Okay, so you graduate with a BA in International Studies at Brigham Young. You had a couple of startup companies that didn't really take off. And then you end up going to University of Chicago in 2007. And is that when you actually started Braintree?
That's right. But just before that.
Just before that.
I had a few other small companies that I built that were successful, but nothing meaningful.
Okay. So this was around the time that like Uber, Airbnb, Shopify, they were launching. And when it comes to these types of companies, they needed payment processing, and it needs to be perfect payment processing. It can't be down for a few hours. It's 24/7, 365. How did Braintree end up hooking up with these monolith companies?
The technology that was available for developers to build payments was really lagging. eBay bought PayPal in 1999, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't innovate their software for quite some time, and so it lagged standards. And so developers wanted better tools to do so. And we built state-of-the-art software tools to process payments. And so we had the best tech companies of that time emerging, Airbnb, GitHub, Uber, several of those companies, Shopify. They became our early customers, and they built our platforms on top of us. Like we helped Uber, for example, do the paymentless process where you flag a car, you get in and you leave, and you never have to mess with the transaction, all in a seamless way. And so we just built software that enabled this next era of payments to emerge.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big deal because, I feel like that was a game changer.
Yeah.
As someone who used Uber pretty much since day one, that was living in New York and was living taxis and had to sit there, and the taxi driver would want you to pay cash and they would argue with you, and to be able to just hop in a car, hop out of a car and do nothing was great.
Exactly. And we solved it for them where Uber didn't need to store the credit card. If a company stored credit cards, they had all these compliance obligations because they had this valuable data that could be hacked. And so we created this elegant solution where we had the credit cards on our side, we stored, we gave them a token, and they had this beautiful payment experience. So yeah, we really went to innovating on making payments beautiful for both the merchant and also the individual experiencing it.
Okay. And by 2011, you guys are actually processing $8 million in payments a day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And by this time, was there a lot of venture capital already invested in your particular company or no?
No, I had bootstrapped. So
really?
I funded the whole thing myself, and we were profitable every month for the first 5 years.
So that same year in 2011, as you guys are growing like crazy, you guys actually purchased Venmo for $26 million.
That's right.
Okay. How'd you come up with the $26 million?
We did our best of trying to assess value. They had built a wonderful business doing peer-to-peer payments. It needed to really be part of something bigger, like, for example, Braintree. We the ability we had is we had the best merchants in the world: Airbnb, Uber, GitHub, Shopify, and getting a payment source of payment on the other side, like Venmo, would marry the two. So now individuals could use their wallet to pay these merchants. That's what PayPal had done in the beginning on eBay. And so we were the first payments company to actually marry the merchant and the individual side, which is where that was the holy grail in payments.
So that same year that you purchased Venmo, you left the church around that time?
I had been leaving the church for almost a decade.
Okay.
The community was my entire life. My family, my kids, my parents, my extended friends, like everyone was in the community. And so to pick up and leave is pretty hard. You kind of break your entire world.
Yeah.
And so I had been leaving for a decade. It just was never the right time to. I was in the middle of building a company and had a couple of babies and in a relationship, and it's just hard to break those things.
Okay. Do you get like excommunicated when you leave officially, or?
There's multiple ways to do it. You can just become inactive and not attend. You can actually officially leave the organization and say, take me off your record, then the church and say, we no longer want you part of the organization. So there's multiple ways you could part. Mm-hmm. And mine, I just drifted off and just I don't want to be part of the organization.
Okay. Was that hard as someone who was born into it and went to Ecuador to convert people and everything else like that? Now suddenly you're parting ways.
Yeah. I would say it's potentially the hardest thing I've done in my entire life.
Wow. Gotcha. Yeah, I bet. Okay. So the company is continuing to grow. And by September of 2013, you guys were processing $12 billion in payments annually. Mm-hmm. $12 billion. In a situation like that, you guys take a small percentage, I guess, for every processing fee?
That's right.
For every process that happens?
That's right.
Do you know, can you say what that percentage was?
Typically, when you pay a business with your credit card, mm-hmm. they typically pay, they'll be charged 3%. Yeah. That money's then distributed among the banks and the payment processing networks. And so it depends on the business size, but we may make 10 cents a quarter, 50 cents per transaction. Depends on how big it is, depends on what their volume is, but it's somewhere on that range per transaction.
That's a lot. When you're talking about 12 billion a year in transactions, even a very, very tiny piece is a ton of money. What kind of revenue was Braintree making during that time before you guys got acquired?
I don't remember what we had disclosed publicly. We were doubling revenue every year. Okay. We were growing like crazy.
Okay. And then on September 26th, 2013, you guys were acquired by PayPal, which at that time was still part of eBay, for $800 million. Mm-hmm. And from what you said in a previous interview, $300 million of that was your cut. Mm-hmm. How did that feel to sign that contract and then look in your bank account and you have $300 million in your bank account?
Surprisingly, like this really weird mixture of emotions. At that moment, I was depressed out of my mind. I'd been struggling with chronic depression for a decade. And I was leaving the Mormon church. I was in the middle of getting, separating from my relationship. It was complicated. I've been running myself ragged as an entrepreneur for 14 years, working my tail end off. So it would be a really nice story if I said, like, best moment of my life, and I started crying, and there was a sunset. Like, it was really complicated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you still have $300 million, even with all that stuff going on.
Yeah, I have $300 million, and then money's complicated. Like it really is. And I know this is like, complain to me, cry to me on this thing. It's complicated. And so life was complicated at that moment. I'm just saying it wasn't an easy thing for me to say, best moment of my life, achievement after all this time. Certainly I was happy that it happened, but it was just amongst a bunch of emotions that were very complicated.
Was there a reason why you sold as opposed to keeping the company private and creating multi-generational wealth for your kids? Not to say that you're not already doing that, but I'm saying a company that you could potentially have your kids take over and be CEOs of and so forth.
It goes back to the goal I had when I was 21. My favorite way of learning is reading biographies. I love reading about people throughout history who in their time and place identified impossibly hard to see things and then did them. And my orientation was always that I wanted to try to do something meaningful, something that would be worth being mentioned in the history books in the year 2500. And if you put that as the threshold of what could be potentially worthy of mention in 2500, it eliminates so much noise of what happens. And payments, while important, is not going to be in the history books in a couple hundred years. It's a functional thing in society. We're glad it exists. Braintree was part of the Braintree Venmo is now part of the global infrastructure on planet Earth, moving money around. I mean, we were so impressed. It was such a phenomenal accomplishment for all of us. That said, it wasn't why I exist, and I really wanted to get at a pursuit of what thing could I do on this kind of time scale.
Before trying to find that pursuit, was there something that you bought? With the money once you got it? I mean, was there some crazy purchase that you always wanted to do that you finally got a chance to do?
No.
No.
I know. I think I'm the most boring person ever, right? I mean, like I don't tell a spectacular story around getting the money, and I didn't go out and buy some expensive car or whatever.
So no plane, no mega mansion, no house in the south of France, none of that.
I mean, my grandfather was a significant influence on my life raising me. He grew up in the Depression. He was the most frugal person I'd ever met my entire life. I was frugal, and those habits just don't change immediately. So no, I remained being extremely frugal.
Okay, so now you basically have more money than you could spend in your lifetime, and you start thinking about what you're going to do in your next step. Because were you offered to stay on as CEO or no? At the point that PayPal acquired you, they pretty much took over Venmo and Braintree?
That was never part of my willingness.
Okay.
The goal was to move on to do something else.
Got it.
Yeah.
So you officially stepped away. Are you happy with the way the company's turned out after you left?
I mean, it exists. It's independent. It's growing like a weed. I mean, like it's an entrepreneur's dream.
Okay. There we go. Okay. So now you start thinking about what you're going to do next. And what ultimately led you to your next step?
I thought about it I have been thinking about it for 10 years. And I like doing these thought processes where, when you go back and you read a biography of somebody in the 1600s, there's only so much information available about the 1600s or 1500s. And it probably captures it probably only captures like 1 or 2 or 5% of all the things that happened remains. Everything else is just gone. Like we have no documentation of it. And so time has this way of distilling information into things that we consider to be worthy to carry on with us as we trek about our journey. And so if you say right now in 2023, in a couple hundred years, when something's written about this time and place, what survives? And that's been my thought process is the exercise is trying to eliminate all the noise and getting to the absolute nugget of what is going on now that matters. That's what I've been trying to solve for 10 years. And I feel really good with where we're at right now with all these different things. But it's been I've never had my intellect strained like it's been in this process.
Okay. Well, you finally started to develop a plan of what you're going to do and how you're going to spend your money. And you put $54 million into Kernel. Explain what Kernel is.
A Kernel is like a bike helmet you put on your head, and it measures your brain. And so the idea behind this is humans do really well when we can build things according to engineering standards. So when you buy a new washer and dryer for your home, you don't have to look at the measurements and wonder whether it's going to fit through your front door. You just know it's going to because society has built according to standards. If you buy a car, it's going to fit in the lanes on the roads. And so when we have measurement, we build standards. One of the only things we don't have measurement for humans is our minds. And so the world we've built is not based upon measurement. It's based upon this subjective feelings. And so the hypothesis was, if we are contemplating the future of the human race, if we're contemplating, okay, we're saying artificial intelligence is progressing pretty quickly. Humans, we want to evolve ourselves at some rate. if we're going to do that, we need some kind of standardized, methodical, rigorous way to measure our minds and then build society around our minds to allow us to move forward. And if you put the contrast and say, okay, well, how are we doing with our minds today? Like, we're in this cognitive crisis. Things are pretty bad about our mental stability in the world. And so we wanted to find a technology. So we spent 2 years looking at every technology in existence. We looked at the edge of physics of everything possible we could look at. We evaluated all the technologies. We brought them all up. We tested them all. We chose one that we felt fit the criteria of it was cheap enough, it could be used around the world by everybody, and it had high quality data. And we built it. It was an impossibly hard thing to do. I think most people thought it was impossible for us to do, and we did it. And so now the device is being used in clinical studies to look at cognitive decline and depression, of trying to establish we can measure the brain and we can have a biomarker. So just like you look at your blood and you say my cholesterol is blank, and you're trying to do the same for the brain and trying to create numbers for the brain that allow us to start doing things in a methodical way.
Okay. So, for example, something like CTE. Usually when football players die, some of them devote their brains to science. They cut open their skull and they slice up their brains and they say, oh, okay, this guy, had really bad CTE. And, this is probably the reason why he ended up in prison and everything else like that. Are you saying you could do this without actually cutting open a brain with your technology, or is it a little bit different?
Yeah, it's the same idea. Like basically, why do we wait for someone to die to look at their brain?
Yeah.
Let's do it now. Let's do it in this chair right now, you in your chair right now, anyone, before practice, after practice, whenever, now. And that was the whole goal, is if we could measure our minds, our brains, we may play sports differently. We may do recovery differently. We may do social media differently. We may do politics differently. We may have depression meds differently. We may do everything differently. And that was the idea, is that this measuring the brain might rescaffold society around our brain.
So can you actually detect CTE in a living person with your helmet, basically?
I don't know the studies on that.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, and wasn't Parkinson's one of the things that you guys were looking at?
We are looking at cognitive decline, and we're looking at depression. So we're trying to find patterns in the brain. Like, for example, we just did a study with alcohol. So we had placebo, low, and medium alcohol. And so when someone did low alcohol, they became impaired, but their brain could compensate for it. So when they did behavioral measures, they appeared absolutely normal. When we looked at their brain with our device, we could tell they were impaired, but the brain compensates for it. If you put them on a higher amount of alcohol, it becomes too much for the brain to compensate for, and their impairment is shown in their behavioral measures. So we showed our device could identify impairment before with better accuracy than behavioral measures. And that's the whole thing, is these things in our brain hide themselves from us. Same with cognitive decline. Like, people can be having cognitive decline for decades, and then it shows up with symptoms, but it's been going on for decades.
Okay.
So how do you find things, like the same thing with the football players? Like, how do you find something going on now before it's a problem? And how do you find these patterns? And so that was the whole idea, is everywhere in society, if I have onset of depression, if there's such a thing as like I have a progressive path towards some kind of condition, could I catch it in an earlier state before it, gets worse? These are the questions we want to start asking.
Yeah, I mean, my dad died of Parkinson's, and it was rough to see it because, he was there completely in terms of his intelligence, but his body stopped working with his brain. I mean, he couldn't breathe himself, by himself at one point. He needed a breathing tube, and, needed assistance, and, like his arms and legs weren't working as well. And it was rough. It was one of the hardest things I went through.
Same. I mean, my stepfather is going through cognitive decline, and there's just nothing worse than watching him lose his humanhood before your very eyes. Right. It's devastating.
Well, Elon Musk has a brain chip, which I guess U.S. regulators just rejected in terms of the actual testing of it. Are you familiar with this technology? Is there a similarity to what Elon is doing, what you're doing?
There's multiple ways to look at the brain. You can do non-invasive, you can do invasive. We chose non-invasive. Right. It would be, we could use the technology on more people. So yeah, it's just a different technological path.
Okay, his, you actually have to drill in your skull.
Right.
And
yeah, there's surgery required. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, it has its purposes. Like you can do things with implanted technology you can't do with non-invasive technology.
Right,
And the same is
because
true.
I mean, with Elon's technology, someone who is a quadriplegic could actually control like a robot arms and legs, right?
I mean, so think
Somewhat.
of it this way. So we have roughly 100 billion neurons in our brain. It's amazing.
Yeah, I know. It's a huge number. I'm like, wow, okay.
It's spectacular.
Yeah.
And so if you're trying to look at what's happening in the brain. With our technology, we're saying we want to look at basically the neurons across the entire brain and about 15 to 20 millimeters deep. So it's just the cortex. We're not looking at deeper structures of the brain. So we get some percentage of the 100 billion neurons, but we get a whole mapping of the entire cortex. Now, if you, but it's a kind of a more generalized look at these neurons, not specific. Whereas if you have a chip, you can put a chip, in the brain, these electrodes in the brain, and you can get as close to a neuron or a few neurons. But in doing that, you may be speaking to 1,000 neurons, 100,000 neurons. So you choose that versus 100 billion. You can do a certain thing with that number of neurons. So when someone gets a Parkinson's implant to ameliorate these symptoms, they're getting an implant at a hyper-specific location that does exactly that thing. You're not doing whole brain work. And so you're choosing your modality based upon your objective. And so Kernel's objective was measure everyone's brain on planet Earth so we have this awareness. But there's a trade-off you get, like in doing the different technologies.
Gotcha. Okay, and you also started OS Fund, which you invested $100 million into.
Yes.
So basically you took the money you made from selling your company and half of it you invested into your own projects.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and in OS Fund, what do you think was the biggest success you've had in terms of your investments?
We've had several successes. The idea behind it was the human race has done a really wonderful job in terms of programming zeros and ones software. When a problem comes up in the world where humans can sit at a keyboard and type away software, humans create great solutions. And millions upon millions of people have that skill set. If we have a problem in the world where we say the coral reef needs to be more tolerant of higher acidic conditions in the water, or like take your problem with like a physical reality, we don't have millions and millions of people who just spin up and can design new versions of coral reef that fast. So I was basically trying to invest in an infrastructure to say, okay, world, we've done a really wonderful job learning how to program zeros and ones in software. We really need to now program atoms and molecules and organisms. And so some of my companies, they do things like that. For example, Ginkgo Bioworks, for the production of rose oil, instead of planting a rose plant, watering it, fertilizing it, harvesting, and then extracting the oil, they just take a yeast organism, program the yeast, and it produces rose oil. And so you don't have to play with this old school way of going out and planting and fertilizing. It's just done biologically. And you can produce all kinds of things that way. So it's moving manufacturing of all of our essential things to the world of biology. And so same thing with my other companies doing things in nanotech. They build these structures atom by atom. And so it was really making our physical world predictably engineerable, because we need to engineer all things from drugs to materials to everything we do. You've got this physical component.
I mean, not to say it's the same technology, but can you compare it somewhat to like lab grown meat? Like instead of, raising a cow,
Yep.
feeding it for whatever, 5-10 years, and then killing it and eating it, you could take the building blocks of that meat and kind of create meat in a lab without actually having to create the cow.
Yes.
Same kind of thing.
Same thing. And why grow a tree, cut it up, and then build a house? Why not just have biology grow the house?
Right.
I mean,
or create the wood.
Yeah,
which you
actually
use for the house.
grow into the house. Like actually, program it.
Wow.
To actually.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Program it to grow a house.
Not even build. Yeah, you just skip the wood part. You could actually grow the house itself.
Yeah. And so it's a mind-bending change of how we do things today.
Yeah.
And these companies have proven the ability to do these things. So, I mean, this is not sci-fi. They're doing exactly these things right now in all these different forms. And so our ability, the human race's ability to master the predictable engineering of biology is an unbelievable demarcation of intelligence for us as a species. And it opens up all this huge frontier of possibility for us.
I mean, between Kernel and OS Fund, have some of these projects been profitable, or at this point, you're just sinking money in and hoping at some future time that it'll come back tenfold?
Yeah, Kernel is still on its way. OS Fund, we've had several companies exit and make money. So, yeah.
Nice. Okay. So you're, running this big fund, you're CEO of Kernel. And at what point do you really start saying, okay, I'm going to go ahead and start working on the whole anti-aging thing?
Mm-hmm. I've been ruminating on this problem again for a decade, right? Like, what matters in the year 2500? So, like, if we do a thought experiment, we say, okay, let's go out to low Earth orbit. Let you and I look back at planet Earth. So it's quiet. And we say we want to quiet all the noise. Everything that doesn't matter, let's just push aside. What is really going on planet Earth? And I'd say there's three things. One is you've got the emergence of artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. It's just it's the most spectacular thing happening on planet Earth. Number two is we have this open question: is our biosphere going to be able to sustain us on planet Earth? Important question.
Global warming and the such. Yeah.
And number three is, hey, we as a species, we seem to have kind of a hair trigger on violence towards each other. We're kind of playing around with nukes. Like as a species, we're pretty violent.
Yeah.
And we're always on the razor's edge of destroying each other.
True.
So I'd say those are three things in my mind of big things going on. Like, okay, so what could we potentially do? And my thought on this is that artificial intelligence is moving very quickly. We as humans, for the first time, we don't know our role in the future. We can't map out that we continue to be top of the food chain. It's just uncertain what's going to happen. We're evolving in this place, and we also don't want the fun to stop. I like living. I want to continue to exist. I don't want us to destroy each other. So Blueprint is not it. Yes, it's about anti-aging and health and wellness, but really it's this question about what is the future of being human, and that's what I set out to do. And what I basically have shown is I've built an algorithm that takes better care of me than I can myself.
Okay, and I guess you got the idea when you were flying your plane and you put an autopilot?
Yeah, I mean, it's a few layers here. Like one, from a personal standpoint, when I was building Braintree Venmo, I had the stress of being a startup entrepreneur, 3 little babies at house, a challenging relationship, leaving the Mormon church, and chronically depressed. Like, that's a lot. And then I would do really well all day. 7 p.m. would arrive. I'd be stressed out of my mind, ruminating on all the things going on, the fires I had to put out, all that. And I would try to soothe myself by eating food. So I would gorge myself, and I was 60 pounds heavier than I am now. And no matter what I did, I could not stop my behavior. I would try every single day, couldn't do it. And so I just had this weird situation of like, I really don't want to do this, but I can't stop it. Like, I'm just powerless. I can't stop myself. And it was this really weird situation. And then one day I was so tired of it because I would overeat, then I would sleep poorly. I'd feel awful the next day. I'd look awful. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I felt so ashamed. I said one day, okay, evening, Bryan, you're fired. Like, you're done. Like, you are absolutely ruining my life. I hate you. You're just awful. And I gave him a name. I wrote down when he showed up, what his arguments were. Very clever. Like, Bryan, just today, just one more bite. We'll start tomorrow. You deserve it. You worked really hard. Like, whatever his clever arguments were. And he would try to persuade me. And I just said no. Like, from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m., you do not have authority at all to exist, to make decisions. And it was the first time I wrestled control of like this different version of myself. And I realized that I'm hundreds of kinds of Bryans. I'm morning Bryan, afternoon Bryan, and after workout Bryan, and therapy Bryan. And so that was one. And then when I was flying the airplane, I learned how to fly airplanes. And I was one day flying with my hands. And I was like doing left, right, up, down, and like doing this thing, trying to keep it. And then I put autopilot on, and the plane just stood right up, like just perfect posture. I thought, damn, like that's what I need. I need an autopilot for myself. Like instead of me trying to do this crazy thing all the time. And that's when it just like kind of got in my mind. I thought, I want an algorithm that takes care of me because one, I've proven that I can't take care of myself the way I want to. And two is I bet it could do a lot better job than I can myself, and it could probably improve me. And so then if we say, okay, so another thought experiment, you and I are talking and we say, what is the potential of artificial intelligence over the next 20 years? We're going to like have a couple ideas, but it's basically better. Neither one of us is going to argue it's going to be worse.
Well, if you're Elon Musk, you'd argue that it's going to be worse, but yeah, I think it's going to be better.
He's not arguing it's worse
Well, he's scared of AI.
because it's better.
Yeah. But he feels it could also be catastrophic.
Okay, when I say better, it's going to be more capable.
Yeah.
So we're not going to argue whether or not it's going to be more capable. We may argue what it means, but it's just getting better.
Correct.
If we say for you and me, what are you and I going to be like in 20 years? We don't assume better at all. We assume worse. We just assume what's our decay curve going to be like, fast or slow?
Mm-hmm.
What if that wasn't the case? What if we could assume, just like our technology, that we will be better? Humans have never been able to think about themselves like that in the history of the human race. We've always assumed inevitable decay, decline, and death.
Yeah, after a certain age, right? Because you would say that, from being from 5 years old to 10 years old, your body's now more powerful, it's more resilient, it gets to a certain point, at which case it goes into decline. But yeah, at our age, I'm 49, you're 40 something. Yeah, we're assuming that every year is going to get, my eyesight's getting a little worse, my glasses have to be improved and everything else like that. And I know, with my personal journey, at the start of the pandemic, I was 30 pounds heavier. And I was always thinking, okay, I should lose weight, I should work out. I tried being a vegan, whatever else, and never really caught. But then when I realized that the death rate from COVID was tied to obesity and weight, that to me was my wake-up call.
Yeah.
I said, okay, if I don't lose weight, I might die if I catch COVID. So what I realized at that point is like, okay, it's really based on the amount of calories that I eat. I got this app called MyFitnessPal, and I started just logging in my calories of every single thing I ate for the first time in my life. And it was like an eye-opening experience. I'm like, oh, okay, so if I hit 2,000 calories a day, according to this app, I will lose weight. And the weight just started flying off.
Yeah.
It completely blew my mind.
Numbers.
And
yeah.
to this day, I'm still down to 30 pounds. I don't use the app to count my calories anymore because I understood. I have a ballpark now of like, okay, I know this sandwich is about this much, this drink is about this much. I can sort of eyeball it in my head. And that was to me my biohacking experience for myself. But you took it 10 steps further than that. So what did you start doing for your biohacking?
Yeah. So I guess do one philosophical thought, then the practical stuff. Okay. So let's just say we move to year 2500, and whatever form of intelligence exists then is looking at 2020, early 2020s. And they're like, amazing that humans did blank that changed everything about the future of the human race. What would that be? And I would hypothesize it's potentially humans in the early 2020s figured out how to get themselves, not just their technology, themselves on the improvement curve. That when we imagined ourselves, it wasn't, even a 10-year-old is going to say, I know I'm going to get bigger and stronger than, but I'm also going to follow the same decay curve. I'm going to die. Humans figured out how to make themselves better so they could begin having aspirations to say, what am I going to be when I grow younger? I don't know what kind of superhero, but I'm going to be blank. The biggest revolution that could happen in the human race would be that we switch. And so with me, I wanted to pursue in an experiment, what would the future of a human existence be like? So if an algorithm really did run my life, what would it be like? And so we started with all the best science. And so I have a team of 30 doctors. We looked at every single lifespan and health span study in existence. We looked at all the evidence, we ranked all of them, and then we started going through the systematic process of identifying what would a perfect protocol be like. And that's what we've done. And so every single calorie I eat, every supplement I take, everything I do is based upon evidence. And it's different from today where health and wellness is a lot like religion, where you've got an endless number of gurus to pick from, but then it's very hard to know who to listen to. Just like the King James Bible supports 100 different denominations, when they all claim that they're God's true and only, it's the same as true with health and wellness. Everyone has their own little thing.
Right.
And we just said, no human opinion, it's evidence and data. And so I became, I think I'm the most measured person in human history. I have more data collected about myself, and we match it to the evidence, and we create this closed loop system of continual improvement. And I've made the whole thing available for free for everybody. So people can try it, they can do it themselves, they can test to see if it works.
Okay, so you got 30 different doctors that started to work with you.
Yeah, to clarify that, like for example, I have a medical grade ultrasound machine at my house, and So ultrasound, people are familiar looking at babies in the womb. So we do whole body ultrasound. We look at all my joints, all my organs, lung, hearts, brain, all that kind of stuff. And so we have one sonographer who runs the machine, who looks at my heart, one that specializes in my other organs, one that specializes in my musculoskeletal. So when I say a team of 30, it includes practitioners like sonographers who run these machines.
Okay. Well, for example, I hooked up with this company called New Amsterdam Genomics. You familiar with them?
I'm not.
Well, so I got my whole genome mapped out. And basically what they're looking for is certain genes that were out of the ordinary in terms of certain diseases that might, develop. With me, one of my fears was Parkinson's because of my dad. And they said, okay, well, based on these genes, it doesn't seem like you're, much more likely to get Parkinson's than just a regular person. But there were certain things about like muscles and so forth. And the doctor who kind of did the, review, he put me on some muscle, pills that could potentially stem things if later on. But it's one of those things where it's just because it says that you're more likely doesn't mean it's going to actually happen. Right? Is this similar to some of the stuff that you're doing as well? I mean, do you look at your genes and so forth, or is it more like, no, this is just what's happening right now, and we're just focusing on the now?
Yeah, there's a few genes my team looks at, but generally we are looking at all the evidence to say what's the world's best scientific evidence on how to achieve maximum health and maximum lifespan, and we do those things. And so, I playfully say, I tongue-in-cheek say, Blueprint is the best health protocol developed in human history. If you disagree with me, prove it with your data. And again, I playfully say that, but it's legit. I share everything. I've got 50 biomarkers in the perfect clinical outcome range. I've slowed my speed of aging the equivalent of 31 years. I now accumulate aging damage on par with a 10-year-old. So as you get older, you accumulate aging damage faster. It compounds. So the younger you are, the slower you accumulate aging damage. I'm on par with an average 10-year-old and better than 88% of 18-year-olds. So if you look at all my data from how fast I'm aging according to DNA methylation, my biomarkers, like all the above, it's a compelling set of data. And so I want to move the conversation forward to say, instead of spouting this or that theory, data. Let's have the conversation with the data.
Right. Okay. But this doesn't just come by having a team of doctors. You actually have to put this into practice. And that means you could only eat 1,977 calories a day.
Right.
You don't actually get to choose what you eat.
Correct.
The whole autopilot thing means that you are told ahead of time exactly what to eat in the morning, afternoon, and at night. Or do you even eat at night? Or
I don't.
You don't. Okay, so just the morning and the afternoon. And I've seen some of the stuff that you eat. It's not exactly, per se, or, gourmet food here. It's like basically green stuff mushed into various shakes and stuff like that, right?
It's vegetables.
Vegetables.
Broccoli, cauliflower, mushrooms, lentils, nuts, berries, raspberries, blueberries.
Right. As well as shakes and so forth, right?
Not really. No.
Well, what's that thing that you drink in the morning?
Oh, yeah. It's a drink with a pre-workout drink.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay. So when was the last time you ate something that you actually wanted to eat?
Today. This is the thing, is I don't want to eat pizza or donuts or a hamburger or fries. I don't want to. It's disgusting to me.
Really?
No. I don't want
to eat it. Okay, look, what age did you start this diet?
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're how old now?
45.
45. So you're going to tell me for 43 years, there's no food that you look back on from your childhood, from at any point that you say, wow, I wish I could, eat an In-N-Out burger because I just love In-N-Out.
It makes me feel so awful. Like if I eat it, I instantaneously feel awful.
Okay. But you feel great when you eat the stuff that you're eating.
Yes.
Okay. And you eat no meat. It's purely vegetarian.
Yeah. So Blueprint, this is important. Blueprint says nothing about meat. I'm a vegetarian because I choose to be. And blueprint also is to say that when I eat broccoli and cauliflower, that's not to say that those are the only two vegetables that work. Other vegetables could also work. It's only to say this is a version that has produced near perfect health in me. And it's not to say anything about anyone else. It's just simply to say blueprint is a process to say scientific evidence, data, implementation, do it again. But it expresses no opinions. And so this is really important that anyone can do this with their thing, and it's fine. Just produce the data, and then we can compare data. And that may be the case. Now, maybe plant-based diet does something better than meat. Maybe meat does something better than plants. Whatever. It's just a process. And that's what I'm trying to move this past opinions and the tribalism of the debate into if we can remove the emotion from the discussion and just follow the data and the science, we will all be better off.
Well, along with this specialized diet, you take over 90 pills a day.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds pretty wild. 90 pills a day, 365 days a year.
Mm-hmm.
Whew. Was that weird in the beginning, taking that many pills?
I worked up to it. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you started with a few and then
Yeah.
over time?
Yeah. If you remember, though, that the objective of this project is I'm trying to show from the year 2500, we look back at the early 21st century, we say, what did humans do that changed everything? I'm trying to do a proof of concept to show that the fountain of youth is potentially here right now, that people can do something right now to dramatically slow their speed of aging. Now, not arrest it, just dramatically slow it. Now, we have technologies coming that could reverse it, but that's all I'm trying to do is like just a single human example that you can have control over these processes. If I can prove that, it's going to change how we understand ourselves. And so when I take these pills, it's not just because I'm doing it for fun. I'm after this objective of this response. Like if you look at the explorers through history, Magellan goes around the world, right? Shackleton does tries to do the South Pole. Once someone shows one thing's possible, all other humans can do it.
Okay. And, the headlines are always that Bryan Johnson spends $2 million a year on his health. Is that still an accurate number?
Yeah, it's a lot.
Okay.
It varies, but yeah, it's a lot.
Where does that money go to? Where does like the big chunks of that 2 million go to?
On measurement.
Measurement.
And measurement, yep. So I think it's true that I'm the most measured person in human history.
Uh-huh.
And so for a person to actually do Blueprint, it's about $1,500 a month. That includes all your groceries. So if you just look at how much you spend out to eat right now and your groceries, most people in the United States, a lot of people could do this at $1,500 a month.
Yeah.
And this is, I've shared this all openly. It's all open source. People can go do it. The majority I spend is on trying to verify that what this stuff is doing has effect. And so it's really on the measurement side. And so people are benefiting because I'm doing all this this safety and efficacy profiling and baselining myself, and I just share the results with everybody. And so that's really where the most of the expense is. But implementation, I'm happy it's $1,500 a month.
Okay. And you talk about right now you're just trying to slow down aging.
Yes.
But you did touch on reversing aging. And just recently, there was a group of scientists that managed to reverse aging in mice.
Mm-hmm.
You know about this?
I do.
So what exactly is that?
I think the one you're talking about is epigenetic reprogramming.
Okay.
But basically there's two things you want to do. You want to slow how fast you're aging, and then you want to reverse the aging that has happened, because we're not going to win against entropy anytime soon. We're going to continue to age. So it's really making that slow and then reversing the damage that has happened. Now, in my own process, when I slowed my speed of aging as much as I have, many of my body's organs went back to a younger state. Like they rejuvenated themselves. And we know this because we're endeavoring to measure every organ of my body. So we bioage my heart, my lungs, my brain, my diaphragm, my nerve sensitivity on my hills, like everything. And so we have all this information on what happens when you get these things in a closed loop system. So yeah, but the more powerful technologies to reverse the aging and dramatically extend our lives, they're coming. They're not here yet.
Right. Because I remember, watching a video about this, and it showed two mice that they went, this whole anti-aging process with, and one was like kind of had like white hair, and the other one was like had like jet black hair or fur, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this going like, yo, this is crazy.
Yeah.
But this is just mice. At what point, from your point of view, as someone who does this, at the highest levels, at what point will a human be able to do this whole process that the mice are benefiting from right now?
Yeah. What I love about your question is it teases out our philosophical norms, which we can't see. We currently plow ourselves into our work because we think our work product is going to live on. Mm-hmm. We accept to be martyrs for that process. So we will work late nights. We will be high stress. We will eat bad food because we contribute to this work thing which goes on, but we accept our demise. What if we were our own best work-life product? Flip it on its head. So we are no longer subservient to and martyrs for our technology. Our technology's only objective is to serve us and our own improvement. These little teeny shifts, like what would change the 21st century? We are our own best product of our entire lives, and we see ourselves in the future as better. In neither case do we accept decay, decline, or death. None of us. It's a societal standard. And then you take this thing like junk food, going to bed late, skipping exercise, like all these habits we do which accelerate our aging vanish because nobody wants to do it anymore because we have this future we look forward to. Like you talk about things that would just shift humanity. To me, that's it. That's where you put your finger on it. And then it blossoms.
Okay. But once again, this technology that's allowing mice to reverse aging or slow down aging, I'm not quite sure exactly what it is.
Yeah.
At what point can a human take this same mouse pill that the mice are taking and apply it to themselves?
Yeah. It's a dangerous game to predict to predict scientific outcomes. I think it would be reasonable to say right now, for someone like myself who is pretty well aware of the science and what companies are doing, both with my own investing and also being aware of what's happening in the field, it is definitely the right time to make meaningful changes in your life, to make you your number one priority, not your work. That means don't sleep under your desk. Don't eat junk food. Don't eat too much food. Don't skip exercise. Don't deprioritize sleep. Like I think here's the thing. The future of human existence, like what we're walking into, may be the most spectacular time to ever exist. And I don't think we want to miss out on it.
Right. I remember, was it Kurzweil, who was working for Google, but he's the one that kind of developed all the keyboards. He said the key to immortality is to live long enough for the next big medical breakthrough that might cure whatever it is you're about to die from.
Exactly. Very true. And so people, like it's such a common thing I hear people say, you're wasting all your time. Like instead of living life, you're wasting all your time. But what they're not considering is for every day that we move forward, the science gets a little bit better. Mm-hmm. And if you can basically be on that improvement curve and catch the next wave. So no human right now, like if you're alive right now, don't die. Like that's the takeaway here.
That's the key.
Is like don't die and change your life so you don't accelerate your death.
Don't you have the record for, I guess, reversing aging for 5.5 years or?
That's right. One of the tests we did had an epigenetic age reversal of 5.1 years. We don't really use them on a routine basis now. It's still silver standard science. Mm-hmm. So it's not gold standard yet. Phenotypic markers are. So we thought it was an interesting result, but we don't use it as an ongoing basis because it's not as reliable. It's not a reliable enough marker for us to use going forward.
And so in the process of doing this, so you're talking about all the testing, all the pills, but you also have a very specific exercise routine. Mm-hmm. It's only 1 hour a day, but it's an intense 1 hour a day. You also do like a red light treatment for your skin.
Yeah, and so you can see this. This is from laser treatment.
Okay.
Yeah. I did it on Saturday, so this is 3 days in.
Okay, I noticed that you have some spots in your neck.
Yeah.
That's from the same thing?
Laser, yeah.
Okay, and what does that do exactly?
So the objective is, I said I want to be like an 18-year-old in a playful way. My son, I have two boys, 19 and 17, and we love doing things together. We love playing sports together, racing. We compete at everything. We love doing it. It's so much fun. And so I always joke with them, when I grow younger, I want to be like you. And so they're also cool in that when I'm doing a certain test, like for example, what does optimal body fat and muscle look like? They get under the MRI, I get under the MRI. We do these comparisons. They do all the same tests. So it's cool to have these comparisons. And so we're trying to get my skin to be the same as theirs at 18 years of age. The elastin, the collagen, all the above. And so it's a reference marker for us of how do you actually go after youth and our organs, like your heart and your lungs, your skin. There's characteristics of a certain age. And so it's just a playful way of saying, we're after rejuvenation. I play with my kids. We have fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, I just had Neil deGrasse Tyson on my show the other day, and we were talking about immortality and everything else like that. And I told him, I always thought, at least when I was younger, that at one point, I might have a robot body. That when my body starts to break down, they'll be able to take my brain and throw it into a robot, or I don't know, maybe like a human body that they've somehow farmed and so forth. But that's not realistic. And, he's saying that, through genes and so forth, it's a more of a realistic approach to living longer. Do you think there'll be a point in the future where humans will be able to cheat death in the way of removing their brain and putting it into a different body or putting it into a robot body to preserve?
Unnecessary. Unnecessary.
No?
We'll just mess with the genome and you live forever.
Mess with the genome.
Yeah, just change the genes in a way so that they don't age. We're much closer to that than separating your brain out and putting it
with mice already,
and putting it in a jar.
They're doing that with mice.
There are ways we can prolong the life of other animals, but they don't live forever. They just live longer than they otherwise would have. So I think we're much closer to that manipulation of the genome than removing the brain from your skull and sticking it in a jar.
I mean, do you ever see, as someone who has a company that focuses on brains, do you ever see a brain transplant actually being a reality?
I mean, if the conversation, what technologies are coming that could save you and me? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think a brain transplant is something we should put a lot of hope into.
Why is that?
I mean, the amount of time it would take to figure that out and to get it stable is some unknown duration of time. So the thing that we can do today is eat more vegetables, go to sleep on time, and exercise. These are immediately in our control. And this is again what I'm trying to show is these basics we all know of, if done well, can dramatically change. And so your conversation with him maybe calls attention to this idea that typically what happens in these conversations is you exchange information about the idea and then it's pointed at the horizon of like, oh, over there we'll have blankety 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 blank. And then our minds go to like amazing future. Meanwhile, we have all these terrible habits. So meanwhile, we have all these terrible habits that are accelerating our aging. So we're not going to be around for this amazing blankety blank thing. And so what I'm really trying to do is call attention to right here, right now, everybody can dramatically slow their speed of aging. So whenever this stuff does show up, we're around to benefit from it. But this is the thing that I tried to prove is, so we're all familiar with this Fountain of Youth story. People in a boat going to someplace in the jungle, a temple, they find an elixir, and they've got it. And I'm trying to say, is the Fountain of Youth here in its baby form, not baby form, in its early form, it's just hidden in thousands of scientific publications and a lot of really hard work.
Well, yeah. I mean, I looked it up. The list of verified oldest people was a woman named Jeanne Calment from France, who lived to 122 years and 164 days. Mm-hmm. Does that sound plausible?
Sounds about right.
Sounds about right. Do you expect to live that long based on your current regimen? Or do you plan on beating that?
Certainly. I mean, I don't know why. If somebody is able to hang around for the next few decades, I don't know why we would have a cap on our imagination. I don't know what fundamental principles exist that would lead someone to say, we can say with confidence, there's a cap.
Yeah. I mean, although 122 years is, what's interesting about this also is that she was born in 1875.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah,
no antibiotics, really. Very little modern science. Seemed like she just got lucky on a lot of different levels because, I mean, if you look at someone that was born in the 1900s, there's Maria Branius. Seems like women are more likely to live longer for whatever reason. She lived to 116 years, 52 days. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking, most people, I'm looking through this list and there's really very few people that were, basically the early 1900s is where it starts to kind of cap out. Well, of course, you got to count the actual time, and I'm sure there's people that are alive today that might push the envelope, but it doesn't seem like things are getting better. It almost seems like the environment is making people die earlier as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah. One way to think about this is if we try to map out how fast are things going to change and how fast will innovation be in the coming decades.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would offer a frame with this idea. First principle thinking is talent hits the target no one else can. Genius hits the target no one can see. So let's just say talent is doing things better on an iterative basis,
mm-hmm.
and genius is changing the game entirely.
Yeah.
So we find DNA exists. We discover electricity, right? Like we discover these fundamental things that change everything. How many of these genius level innovations are we going to have? So you can look at the course of human history and say, okay, well, through thousands of years, we have a pretty good awareness of things that have happened.
Yeah. Penicillin was a game changer.
So now you say, now artificial intelligence is here, right, as our partner in doing this. And you look at the speed of genius level discoveries that artificial intelligence makes. And you start mapping that out and say, okay, now the whole landscape's very different. So now any model we create in the future of how fast we think things are going to change, what discoveries are we going to make on what timescales, we have no idea. And that to me is the most exciting part. Is any model we have of anticipating time horizons does not account for the speed of artificial intelligence introducing genius level change.
Mm.
And this is what I'm saying.
Okay, I see what you're saying. You say the AI will come up with ideas that humans have not been able to come up with themselves.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like exactly. And so then it goes back to the simple lesson. If you're alive today, don't die. And the way to not die is stop your bad habits, eat more vegetables, get your good sleep, exercise. Like it's a really simple game. If we're walking into this future that is potentially more extraordinary than anything we've ever imagined, and we have a total inability to predict it, model it, anticipate it at all. Anything we speculate on it is just has no bearing whatsoever. We're casting our thoughts in there, but we're using old models to do so.
Yeah, exciting stuff. This is something that every human thinks of, whether they admit to or not. I think everyone wants to live forever. No one has ever done it. And, this is where religion comes in, because religion allows you to achieve that hypothetically. You'll go to heaven and you'll live forever in a perfect place, or you'll go to hell and live in agony in an imperfect place. But I think the whole concept behind all these things is we just wish we had more time, and time is the most valuable thing in the universe.
Yes.
More important than anything else, because if you have more time, then you can achieve more things.
Exactly.
It's one of those things where I think Neil deGrasse Tyson also argued that the fact that you have a limited amount of time gives the time more value. So it's a handoff. Me personally, I'll take the more time.
But that's just a justification for a reality that exists, right?
Exactly.
But to be clear, this is not about immortality. The human brain cannot contemplate immortality. It breaks our brains.
Yeah.
The only thing we can come up with is we can say, when I go to bed tonight, do I want to live tomorrow? That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And do I have things going tomorrow I want to live for? Fine. But it's just, to me, it's just one day after another. It's not about eternity. It's just being our best selves, doing our best lives day to day.
I mean, right. I mean, to fully achieve immortality, you'd have to have a way of transferring your brain into another medium, right? Which
Why?
is incomprehensible at this point.
But why is that the only path?
Well, because like you said, the brain will eventually deteriorate, right?
I mean, so if you that's true now, but it may not be true in the coming decades. We may figure out how to rejuvenate it.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. We don't know. It's impossible for us to predict what's going to happen. The only thing we can model out, we can say, okay, we have these abilities of these. We can engineer the fundamental building blocks of our reality. Atoms and molecules and organisms. We're doing so in the form of drugs, epigenetic reprogramming, all these things. What is going to transpire because of these abilities? We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's reasonable to me to say, I want to be around to see. And it's moving at a pace faster than any of us can imagine.
Well, Bryan Johnson, I appreciate you coming in. I mean, it's rare that you see someone really take the money they've made and invest it into something that all of society will benefit from, but also experiment on themselves in the process. Usually these are tests that are being done and control groups and everything else like that. But you're actually saying, okay, I believe in this so much that I'm not only investing my own money into this, but I'm actually doing this on myself. Mm-hmm. I'm experimenting on myself. I'm taking 90 pills a day. I'm spending $2 million a year. I got 30 doctors. I'm actually not eating what I want to eat. I'm eating what the algorithm tells me to eat. I'm exercising the way the algorithm tells me to exercise, and I'm actually following this procedure, and I'm letting everyone know how it works out. And I'm, like you said, open source, opening it to the world and letting everyone make, their own decision on whether they want to follow my footsteps or not. I think it's great, man.
Thanks.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Peace.